So the COVID shutdown happens. The gym I'm working at shuts down for almost 4 months. And I'm left on unemployment for the first time in my life. Lots of changes going on at that point in time. And I'll be honest with you, I was starting to question whether the change in industries from the newspaper industry to health and fitness, the move from Erie, Pennsylvania, where I was working in the newspaper industry, to Ocean City, Maryland, where I was working in health and fitness, whether that was a smart decision on my part. And it's a family decision, of course, but I took it to heart because I was taking a big risk that was going to impact the entire family. And at that point, when the gym is shut down, I don't have a job at that time, and who knew when the gyms were going to reopen? I was on unemployment. I thought, man, the choice I made wasn't the right one. It's hard not to think that way. You're human. And for me, that's when I realized that if I don't want this bump in the road, if you will, this change in plans to be permanent, then I have to do something about it. So at that point, I knew I couldn't work with people in person. So I was setting up the garage for, my first garage gym that is now affectionately known as the Vicnasium. Thank you, Rich Gall, for that. I knew I couldn't train anybody in person, but I could go online. So I started training some of my active clients, my active in-person clients, teaching them online to keep them moving in the right direction. Just because everything was shut down, just because I didn't have a job, just because we didn't have a gym to go to and train together, didn't mean that we couldn't continue their own health and fitness journeys. But then I thought, well, why can't I do this more regularly, full-time even at some point, meaning training people online? And then the first thought that came to me was, I don't have a clue how to do it. Aside from, training, talking to people much like I'm talking right now, I didn't know how to build that type of business. I really didn't know how to build any type of business. I don't have a business background. I went to college and got a communications degree with a specialization in journalism. That's what I did for 26 years, more than half of my adult life. I didn't know anything else with the exception of the little bit of time in comparison that I'd been in the health and fitness industry. And even then, I was working for a business. I wasn't running my own business. That's a completely different animal altogether. And I realized at that point that I needed help. I mean, certainly, yeah, I could muddle along and try this and try that and throw the proverbial, spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks. Or I could find help. I could find someone who's been in the industry, who's built a business, and is now teaching people to do the same. That in and of itself was a pretty big challenge, to be quite honest with you, and a scary one at that, because hiring anybody is not cheap. We know that. Hiring somebody to be a coach, that's definitely not cheap. And everybody I talk to, we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars. And the idea of investing that kind of money when you don't have a job at the moment was scary, especially when you're talking about having a family to support. But I took the first step. I started informing myself. I started looking for people online to see, read more about them and get to know them a little bit and having conversations with these people. I must have interviewed at least a half a dozen, to my best recollection, half a dozen different coaches from various backgrounds, some male, some female, some older, some younger. And I started working with one. It took a few months to get to that point. Actually, I want to say it took, since the pandemic was the spring of 2020, I want to say to the end of that summer, about even after the gym had reopened and we'd gone back to work, I was still talking about doing that. But beginning of the summer, I just couldn't pull the trigger yet. It was going to be busy. At least I hoped it was going to be busy. Summer was always, a pretty busy time, a good opportunity to make good money. My summer people were all coming back to train, and I would add new people to that mix. But I still kept that in the back of my mind, that I need to hire a coach. If I'm going to do this, I need someone to guide me. And finally, it's probably the end of September, end of August, early September, I decided to hire a coach. Her name's Amanda O'Mara, and she was great. And I think part of the reason why I hired her was because she understood my fear. It wasn't about, hey, you got to take a leap of faith. Hey, you got to take imperfect action. Hey, you just got to get past the fear and just do it if you want to do this. She understood the fear. She understood what I was thinking, and she took the time. I mean, she was one of the first people I spoke with, and 3-4 months she hung in there with me until I felt the time was right to get it done, and I pulled the trigger on signing with her. She was there every step of the way, so that made it much easier in those terms, in the most simplest terms, to hire her. But it was a scary proposition because now I was all in. Yes, I was still working at the gym, but I was going to need to take more and more time from that to be able to devote to building my own business. And that was a scary proposition because at least I knew people were coming to the gym, especially in the summer, that I was going to have clients, at least a steady stream of clients for the most part. When you're building a business, you don't know what's going to happen. Not one bit. And it was slow. But I stuck with it because it was also slow when I first started at the gym, working for the gym there. I had a couple clients early on. I had a real difficult time gaining clients. And then we started picking them up. So I knew that if I just, put my nose to the grindstone and keep working hard, that things would slowly turn around for the better. And they did. It took time. It certainly did. It took making lots of mistakes. It took learning from those mistakes and implementing a plan of action that was going to help at least minimize those mistakes. I mean, I still make mistakes to this day, countless mistakes. But I have a better understanding of the path I need to take moving forward. Back then, I was starting to learn that. But you know what that means? Once you start investing in yourself, and I'm not saying that is a bad thing, it's a very good thing. We should all invest in ourselves in some way, shape, or form. But once you start investing in yourself, and you start putting more and more money into the mix, when you start putting more and more time into the mix, now you got to start doubling down. Now it's when the real fear comes out, because then you're thinking, if I'm doing all this, am I going to benefit from it? Is this business going to grow? Or am I just throwing more bad money after bad money? But I promised myself deep down inside, no matter what negative, self-limiting beliefs I had, and we all have them, deep down I promised myself I was going to see this through because this is what I wanted. Going back to the alternative of working for someone else and being reliant upon someone else to provide me with a paycheck, that just didn't make me happy anymore. And that would have made things real difficult when it came from making good money because my heart wouldn't have been in it. So even though I was scared beyond belief of building this business and hoping it didn't flop, that was still a better choice than leaving things the way they were.